Hello you bearded bastards, and welcome to the Barricaded Murk, a temperate freshwater swamp. Really kind of a nasty place, honestly. However, it is just to the southeast of a large dwarven fortress, the capital of the Scraped Chambers. It's a place called Lorbama still, Standard Worlds, and it is formidable indeed. So this here should be a very safe place to build a fortress. I'm thinking anyways. Now we can see here a small group of dwarves, and these dwarves call themselves Zudanagek, the Keeper of Bees, and their fortress's name is Stetargusgash, Honey Stoker, which is kind of an odd translation into our tongue. That's a dwarven language for you, I suppose. Now, if you haven't guessed already, the Keeper of Bees is a group of dwarves here for the express purpose of starting a beekeeping industry. Now, with that in mind, they are not totally here of their own accord. No, you see, this fortress has been commissioned by a wild boar man who lives nearby, and the boar's name is Moses Disastrous. Kind of an enterprising fellow, really. He had come into a little bit of money, and so he had funded this expedition in order to gain more. Understandable, really. Make your money work for you and all. And so all these dwarves here are basically his employees. But that's okay, I'm thinking, because these dwarves would like to carve a little place for themselves anyways. And so, what the heck? Why not take that pig man's money, right? It makes sense. This place is serene enough, I suppose, even if it is a swamp. And it is pretty close to home too, so that's not bad. Nice and safe, especially with there being an ongoing conflict with the torment of witches. Just an added benefit. Now, it should be noted that I know almost nothing about beekeeping in Dwarf Fortress. Just a little disclaimer here right at the beginning, so we're going to be figuring some things out by ourselves. That being said, I have done some research on it, and it doesn't seem like it's that complicated. But I suppose we'll see. Right now I have my dwarves making some hives, in which honeybees can be stored. I'm making them out of stone. I'm going to try to make as many things out of stone as possible in this fortress. Wood. Ugh. Who needs it? Maybe those water keeper guys up in the north, but not us down in the heartland. And then after we have those hives, I'm going to need a place to put them. I was kind of hoping to put the fortress here, in this little bend of the river, just kind of tuck it into this turn. I think that might be pretty neat. I'm also going to try to go for an open air fortress sort of a thing, like a big pit in the ground, because the honeybees are going to need access to the above ground area here, and I don't want the dwarves to be too far away from their industry, you know? Alright, and how's that for a shape? Yeah, I like it. Kind of oblong, a bit natural. I can dig it. I'm also going to try to make the walls be smooth stone as we head downwards, just so nothing can climb down and get to our dwarves easily. That wouldn't be a great thing, I don't think. And you know, I might put some walls up around this as well. It might be for the best. But we should probably get access to stone first before we do anything like that. Back down here, it would appear all our hives are good to go. And so I'd like to place them somewhere. Where though? I don't really want to wait for this whole thing to be dug out before I place them somewhere. That might take a while. So, you know what? I'm actually going to make a little area over here on the other side of the river, and that's where we'll put the hives. Kind of wonky, I know. But we really have to get them down quickly. It takes a long time to produce honey, and so the sooner we get started, the better. Alright, just to get started, we're going to put down 10 hives like this. And these will all be empty hives. To start anyways. And how we get bees is a dwarf with the beekeeping labor enabled will scour the map looking for an active honeybee hive. And it doesn't look like anybody's doing it quite yet. So I'm thinking there might be no hives on the map right now. Alright, let's have a look here. Okay, over here, just to the left. This little white circle, that is a colony of termites. Useless. So I'm going to construct a dirt road over it, which will destroy this colony. There can only be a limited number of bug colonies on the map at a time, and so by destroying these other colonies, it makes more space for honeybees to pop in eventually, from what I understand. Another colony of termites over here is see ya. We have a colony of ants down here. Get the hell out of here. How's that hole coming, fellas? Looking good, actually. Keep at it, will you? Oh, and you know, I just noticed right here on the bank of the river, or I guess in the river itself, there is actually a colony of honeybees. Yep, but it's like in the river. I don't know why the hell that would be. Well, I'm thinking a dwarf would go and get the bees out of there if it wasn't floating in the water. I'm not too sure what to do about that. We'll just ignore it for now. Well, it looks to be all the hives that were on the map currently, and so I suppose we'll just wait around a bit and hopefully more honeybees will pop up eventually. I am led to believe that that is the case, so I'm not too concerned about it, but I would like to get this whole thing started pretty quickly. We can't displease our boss. He seems like kind of a hard case, honestly. Wouldn't want to anger him. But while we're waiting, that gives us more time to start digging, which is good, something that has to be done. I suppose if we get deep enough, we could put all the hives down here instead of over on the side there. That would be preferable. Oh, and hey, would you look at that? We've already dug down to stone. Very good. It wasn't too far down there. Well, we'll get that turned into rock blocks ASAP, and then we can get the walls of this pit finished with smooth stone, so invaders can't climb in. And that'll give us a moat of safety. Hopefully. Anyways. Ooh, alright now. I just happened to pause the game right as this dwarf was getting a colony of honeybees from this hive right here. And they do have the job, install colony in hive. So that must be what they're doing. But you know, I think I'm going to move all these hives down into our pit now, because we have hit stone. I'd rather have them down there. There we go, go find something else to do, just a moment. Sorry about that. Alright, the first of the hives is in place. So now let's watch this dwarf here, who is now carrying, I guess, a hive of bees. Yes, it looks like they're carrying, currently 18,000 honeybees. I guess just in their hands. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, this is a stack of 18,411 live honeybees. Just got got an armful of bees, right there. I mean, well, that's something. It's a straightforward way to go about it. I mean, I'm not gonna fault you for that. But I don't know, maybe a bag or like a bucket of bees or something. Armful of bees? Yeah, I'm not too sure. But anyways, as you were, Entail here is carrying an armful of bees back to the fortress. Very slowly, mind you, but eventually they get there. Just like this. And it is installed. And yeah, we now have an active hive of honeybees. And if we hit Q and go over it, we have the option to install a colony when ready, which has been done already. And we can also choose to have dwarves automatically gather products from this hive, which will destroy this colony. Now, we're not going to want to collect things from this hive. In fact, I'm going to have no dwarves collect products from any of these hives right here. These 10 hives here will be used to replenish other hives. I plan on having about 40 hives going, 30 of which will be used to gather products from, and the other 10 will be used to replenish those 30 hives, just so we don't have to go through the hassle of collecting wild bees like this. I'm not sure if this is a good way to go about it. As I said, I haven't really done this before, but I'm thinking this should get the job done. We'll see soon enough. And so hopefully now these hives here will just continue growing and we'll be able to split them in the future. Fantastic. Looks like we're good to go. Oh, and you know, I should also keep track of the date. It is currently 15th of Felsight in the year 273, late spring. Let's see how long it takes for these things to actually produce any products. I have a feeling it's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, we'll continue work on our home here by putting down some more hives, of course. That'll only help to speed things up. And we'll continue getting this wall constructed so we have a nice safe place to live. And you know, I was trying to figure out an entrance to our home here, and I'm thinking we should make a tunnel, you know? Maybe like we'll have the actual entrance be out here somewhere, and people will have to go underground to actually access the fortress. Yeah, I like that, definitely. There we go, we'll kind of make it like this. And it will safely lead to the bottom of our pit, home, whatever the hell you want to call it. And you know what, I'm actually thinking we should make another tunnel entrance too, just in case goblins show up. I wasn't really actually planning on having an army here, so if we can get a good trap going, that'll be all we need. Yeah, let's do that. How's that? So when invaders come, we can close up the safe passage and open up this awful dangerous trap thing. Yeah, that's what we're going with. And some migrants, very good. Got some angry faces here. Not something I like to see, probably an exile from Waterkeeper. I heard they had a pretty good policy where they would exile any crabby dwarves. But I don't think that's a policy we'll take on board here at Stetargusgash. No, we're gonna try our best to keep all these dwarves happy, and hopefully we can manage it. Alright, looks like all our hives are in place, and I'm just trying to focus on those top 10 right now. And once that's done, the other ones should get filled up pretty quickly. Having a look at the top of our pit, it looks like the gray stone wall is all done now. If we look down a level, the siltstone wall is coming right along, almost done. But we still don't have any place for our dwarves to live, which is awful, frankly. Especially considering we have a couple of upset dwarves now. Let's try to improve their lives a bit. Now, let's see. We'll start off with a meeting hall over on the right side here, and I'm going to make it underground, accessible through these stairways, which lead down to the actual meeting hall. Kind of an odd shape, sure. And I have those cubbies on the side, which I'm going to put tables and chairs in, just to kind of mix it up a bit. And I do have these bigger chambers over on the left side here, and that's where we're going to store food and drink. Yes, I know this whole chamber is a bit off-center, but I figure that gives it some charm. I like it. Oh, would you look at that, the traders have arrived. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like their wagons were able to get in. I think a tree was blocking their path. Ugh, what a hassle. Well, in any event, we don't have any honey to trade with you, I'm sorry. Next year, though, we'll be brimming with this stuff. You'll have to trust me. But for now, let's see what we have. Not a whole heck of a lot. And so, how about some logs? We'll trade some logs with them just so we have some food and drinks to get us through the next year. Oh yeah, I forgot they don't have their wagons. They can't even carry these logs. Okay, well, just a bit of bad news there, I guess. And on top of that bad news, we actually have some horrendous news. Along with the merchants, a few other dwarves have arrived as well, including the outpost liaison, who tells us that Standard Worlds, the capital of the Scraped Chambers, our civilization, has been conquered by the torment of witches. Goblins, led by Gugo Oozeburials. That is disastrous, really. The Standard Worlds was one of our civilization's biggest fortresses. For it to have fallen, those goblins are powerful. And now that fortress isn't there to protect us anymore. Damn. Well, hopefully we can get some defenses up. And if our little place here stays small enough, maybe we can go unnoticed. It's gonna be our only hope. We can't abandon this place. We only just started. Well, in light of this terrible news, another runner has accompanied the merchants, and they claim to be a messenger from the pigman. They mainly just want a report of our productivity, and they also brought with them some strange requirements involving a well. Sure, a well's important in a fortress, but usually it doesn't have to be so specific. Well, I guess we're gonna build one anyways, so we'll get right to it, boss. No worries. Anyways, back to work, dwarves. Alright, now we have these 40 hives here. I chose 40 because apparently if you have any more than that, production slows down quite a bit, and you cannot have more than 60, or else production stops entirely. And it's probably going to take a while for those other hives to fill up with bees, but in the meantime we're just going to keep working on the fortress itself. Well, aside from our honey situation, our fortress is coming along, fairly well anyways. Those 2 tunnels are dug out, the pit itself is dug out, and the walls above are all set now, so we should be pretty safe. And you know what, we're going to get started on that well too, and we're just going to put it over here in this corner. Now, from what I understand, he doesn't want it to be a big thing, and he does not want it to be fed by the river directly. I'm a little concerned that's going to make it kind of stagnant, but those are the orders. And plus we have plenty of alcohol anyways, so it's not like we're going to have to rely on this thing for water. Maybe just in extreme emergencies. You know what, he probably wants us to build this so that if we get sieged by the goblins, who are now very close, we can still have some access to water, I guess. Still seems pretty strange to me, but whatever. You know what, I'll tell you what, we're going to get that well in order, and I'm also going to try to set up some bedrooms for our dwarves. That's something we really have to do, but it's also kind of tedious. So I'm going to let some time pass, get a few things in order, and then we'll get right back to you. It's currently mid-autumn, just so you know, and I'll talk to you again in a couple months. Alrighty, welcome back. It is the 17th of Opal 273, midwinter, so it's been a couple of months. And as you can see, things are well underway here. We now have a bunch of bedrooms carved out. They still have to be smoothed, but it's a good start. On top of that, we moved all of our workshops down here to the bottom of the pit. Nice and safe, well, relatively safe. Really, actually, I guess not that safe at all, because these gates are not functioning, and we really have no way to block ourselves off from the outside world. But no matter, I'm sure we still have some time here. Now, if we have a look at our hives here, they're actually doing pretty well. It should be noted too that there is no real straightforward way to tell if one of these hives has bees in it or not, other than by hitting T to look inside a building, and then going over one of the hives. Like this one here has nothing in it, but this one over here has 15,758 live honeybees in it. So this is in fact an active hive. Even more exciting, this one over here has some honeybees, as well as some royal jelly, and a wax honeycomb. So that's pretty awesome. It does take a long time for these bees to produce anything, seemingly. But it is looking like a few of our hives do have honeycombs and jelly in them now. These ones here are the base hives, the ones that the other hives will be taking bees from. So it looks like our ground level beehive infrastructure is well underway, which is good to see. Now I'm trying to resist, I don't want to collect anything from those active hives yet. We have to save them for the other hives. I'm sure we'll regret it if we don't. The meeting hall down here is pretty much all set. It just has to be smoothed out now. And a few other little bits and pieces need to be added as well. It's kind of bare and horribly ugly in there, but whatever. And then over this way here in our nasty little trap hall, I am in the process of getting some menacing wooden spikes set up all over this place. And there's going to be a ton of them in here too. I know wood doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot of damage. I mean, it's wood after all. But I figure if we get enough of them in here, then some of them are bound to do some sort of damage. I mean, I really do plan on having hundreds of them in here, all triggered by these pressure plates up here, which is something I have done in the past, and it should work pretty okay. And plus, I do have a few other little odds and ends I want to throw in this tunnel as well, just so it's not a boring old spike tunnel. If the goblins do show up, we really want them to know that they messed up coming to this place. Oh, and they'll know it. Trust me. I'm also having one of my dwarves create a whole bunch of honeybee statues that I want to put throughout that corridor, just to kind of emulate the feeling of walking into a giant honeybee hive, on top of the fact that you'll be getting stung constantly. Little stings, by wooden spikes. Not necessarily the most damaging stings, but there's going to be a whole lot of them. Yeah, I'm sure any invaders will get a real kick out of that. Taking a look at our hives here, I believe they actually all have colonies of honeybees in them now. Every single one, which is very exciting. Yep, it looks to be the case. That is so cool. Oh, and this one here actually has a wax honeycomb in it. Alright. Well, I guess now we have to wait for someone to collect it. I don't see the royal jelly though. I would assume that would be in here as well. Interesting. You know, having a look down here in our stockpile, there is this jug here which is filled with royal jelly. I guess I figured the colony would be destroyed if anybody collected anything from it, but maybe royal jelly can be collected just fine? Seems a little strange to me. Well, I suppose now we could try putting down some kitchens, and from what I understand, royal jelly can be cooked into meals, which is pretty exciting. Oh, but here, wait a second. Looks like we have our first artifact. Let's take a quick look. Dakost Tyleshdodak, the miner, has created Domas Dakas, a siltstone cabinet. He claims it as a family heirloom. Pretty cool. Let's have a look. The Guilds of Color. This is a siltstone cabinet. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. On the item is an image of Zealot planned the walnut wood ring in siltstone, as well as an image of the kisses of naughtiness, the tetrahedrite armor stand in siltstone. Well, it's interesting that this dwarf chose to put an image of two of Waterkeeper's artifacts on their own. I suppose it could be a show of solidarity, in a way, or possibly it's a way to honor the place. I know those Waterkeeper dwarves are far from home, and maybe it just kind of sounds exciting to these dwarves who are still so close to home. That could well be the case. Anyways, let's have that thing placed in Dakost's room. I mean, it's his artifact and all, a family heirloom. Might as well, right? Anyways, royal jelly. Oh, would you look at that? We actually have 3 more jugs of this stuff here in the stockpile. 4 jugs of royal jelly. But from what I can tell, there's no honey yet, which seems a little strange to me. Oh, you know what? I actually just modified this stockpile here to accept wax tools. And that might do it. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that definitely did it. Those must be our honeycombs. And yes, they are. Wow, that is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've ever actually collected honey in Dwarf Fortress. That being said, we still don't actually have honey yet, just a honeycomb. And so we have to press the honey out of this thing, using a screw press, I believe. That would make sense anyways. As a side note, before we go any farther, I noticed that the dwarves are collecting royal jelly, but not the honey. And I believe if they collect just the royal jelly, then the colony remains intact. So I'm thinking as long as there's not a stockpile that will accept honey, then dwarves can just keep collecting royal jelly, just infinitely without destroying the colonies. I don't know if that's the case. That's my guess. Anyways, screw press. I'll get one installed over here in just a second. Shouldn't take too long. You know, I'm having a look up here at our hives, and they all currently have colonies of bees in them. So I mean, those colonies were replaced damn quick. Alright, good to note. Now before we get to that screw press, I just want to show you this hallway real quick. The Hall of Bees. You can see many of those stabby wooden spikes are in place now, and they're all hooked up to pressure plates as well. So this hall is pretty much good to go. These bridges too. So I'm fairly confident in our safety at this point. And also a lot of statues are in place as well. Honeybee statues, and on the walls you can see we have engraved honeycombs, as well as images of honeybees. And I kind of hope to have this hallway be a surreal experience to walk through. Really as if you're stuck in a giant beehive, which is nightmarish. I really hope we get attacked by goblins at this point. I'm also getting terribly sidetracked. One more thing. Up here you can see we've made another ring of residences. We have this one down below, and now this one up above, accessible through ramps. So now we should have plenty of places to live. And up to the north here, that's intended to be a temple, just to make sure all the dwarves remain happy. It's almost all set. Oh, and that weird well is all set too. We made sure to keep it very shallow. Again, another one of that pigman specifications. I don't know what the hell this thing's gonna be used for. But again, he's the boss, so whatever. We'll continue to try our best to make him happy. And back down here to our screw press, wow, this stockpile is entirely filled with honeycombs and jugs of royal jelly. That was pretty quick. Huh. Oh, and here comes the dwarven wagons. Let's try to do something with that real quick. Now, this screw press here. I am going to press honey from honeycombs on repeat right now. Please, thank you. And I imagine somebody will get to it shortly. Oh, here we go. Pressing, and there we go. We have honey. That's fantastic. And here it is, a jug of honeybee honey. Very cool, and it only took us nearly 2 years to produce one. That's horrendous. Well, we're just hoping Mr. Disastrous is kind of a patient fellow, Well, you keep at it, dude. The traders are here. We'll have to see how much we could produce before they leave. Well, I guess for now we could just trade all of our royal jelly and what honey we do have. That should get us something. I'm hoping anyways. It was 2 years worth of effort. It better get us something. There you go, dwarves. Bring it in. There we are. Alright, and we'll get to trading. Well, you know, this stuff doesn't really seem to get you that much. like at all. Let's see what we can get for it. Alright, well, I guess that'll do it. Just got a whole bunch of meat and plants, which, according to the messenger who was once again sent by Mr. Disastrous, is terrible. We're doing a horrible job here in the fortress. And I mean, yeah, I guess we're taking a while to produce honey, but it's all part of the territory. We can't be blamed entirely. We tried to explain ourselves as best we could, and eventually they seemed to get what we were talking about, inspected our well a bit, and made some suggestions on how we should change it, and then they drank a lot of our alcohol and went to sleep in one of the wagons. That's okay though, because I think I know a way we could turn a profit using honey and other bee products. Let's see. Well, first of all, I'm going to build some more screw presses, because we really seem to be getting a lot of honeycombs from those hives, and so it makes sense to want to speed up the process. Very good. Now we don't have a proper cook in this fortress, but I suppose we could start cooking anyways. Gotta get that practice in somehow. Now we have this fella here. His name is Reg, and he's a wax worker. He has a bunch of skill in wax working, for the express purpose of turning the used honeycombs into crafts. But I suppose we could make him a cook too. He's not really doing anything else interesting. So yeah, let's do that. And after Reg is done getting his drink here, hopefully he'll start cooking. Oh, and there he goes. Oh, but it looks like he's not grabbing any honey products quite yet. But that's okay. He doesn't have any skill in cooking, so might as well test out his skills on some useless plants that we have laying around. Just trying to keep my eyes open for when he does actually make something out of honey, because I really want to see what he does. And while we're waiting for him to get done with that, how about we try to make some mead? That's something I've definitely never done in Dwarf Fortress. Let's see how it goes. Alright, brewing, and all set, I guess. Yeah, there we have it. A barrel of mead. Very awesome. I don't know, something about it. It just seems more profound than a normal dwarven drink. It's a special thing. And I'm also going to forbid it, so that it's only used for trade. Yes, I know it'll be hard to resist, dwarves, but try your best. Oh, and now that we have some mead, it looks like the dwarf is going and making something out of honey products. I think anyways. And yes it is. A honeybee honey roast. Very cool. This is a stack of 4 honeybee honey roast. The ingredients are well-minced bilberries, finely minced raspberries, well-minced honeybee royal jelly, and finely minced honeybee honey. I can't easily say how the hell you'd mince honey, but it's an interesting concept. And I'm sure it took a very talented dwarf to put this piece together. Very cool. Well, let's keep pumping these things out, dwarves, and eventually we'll have something to trade, I imagine. Now, another thing we could do is make crafts out of the honeybee comb wax, which is an interesting concept. I don't really know why you'd want to, but let's give it a try. We will make wax crafts, and that is the only option we could choose. Normally you could choose like what kind of craft you'd want to make, but not in this instance. Now let's see what happens. Bringing some wax to the craft dwarf workshop, working, and we're done. Let's see what we got. Well, you know, strangely enough, we actually got 3 crafts out of that. That is interesting. We have a scepter, a ring, and a bracelet, none of which are worth very much at all, unfortunately, but it's to be expected. Well, I'm just gonna let him keep going and we'll see what he makes after a while. The whole idea is kind of intriguing. You know, I'm back down here in our food stockpile, and I was wondering why dwarves really weren't in a hurry to cook up the honey. I had all the honey over in this stockpile here, but then I switched over to this plant stockpile, and that's when a dwarf finally cooked up that one piece of honey. But that's all I've seen so far. I have a couple of ideas, but I think I'm just gonna try them out in the background. And we'll check back in on our cook in a little bit. Back up here on the surface, and there is one thing that I noticed about these bees here that I have not yet mentioned. And, well, you can see them flying around all over the place here, these little yellow dots. And if we move up a couple levels, you can even see them flying over the fortress, which is pretty darn cool. But the dwarves are constantly walking through this area here, and they get stung a lot, like a real lot. Every couple minutes I get an announcement that someone's been stung by a honeybee, which you see normally during gameplay from time to time, but never really on this level. It's pretty crazy, really. But the dwarves really don't seem to mind that much. I mean, at this point, they must have built up an immunity to the venom. I would imagine anyways. And their skin's gotta be all calloused and leathery. Yeah, basically it's a fortress of dwarven footballs. It makes you wonder if there's some sort of an application for these honeybee stings. Nothing terribly useful, I'm sure, but it would be interesting to throw goblins into a pit surrounded by honeybee hives and just have them get stung a lot. Yeah, that'd be pretty entertaining. Maybe in a future fortress. Well, over here in our little workshop area, I'm still producing wax crafts, and we have quite a collection at this point. Over in this bin here, we have, well, you could see, a whole bunch of different pieces. Bracelets, crowns, rings, figurines, and they're all basically useless, as in they're not worth very much at all. And so down here at this jeweler workshop, I'm having a dwarf encrust them with gems. We've actually dug out quite a few gems here in Stetargusgash, and so I figured we'd put them to use. Might as well, right? And so hopefully that'll improve the quality of our waxy crafts. I'd have to imagine it will. Back over here to the food stock pile, you can see I kind of changed up this pile right here. There are now a bunch of smaller piles in this chamber. One that accepts meat, one that accepts fish, plants, drinks, and a couple of big piles that accept honey and royal jelly. Getting dwarves to cook specific food is kind of a giant pain, and I don't even know if this is going to work really. Oh, actually, the dwarf just grabbed some royal jelly. Okay, good. That seems to work pretty well actually. Of course it requires solid foods to be in these other piles, but it still gets the job done, it would seem. Let's see what they made. Well, here we have a honeybee royal jelly roast. This is a stack of 13 finely prepared honeybee royal jelly roast. The ingredients are superiorly minced canniwa flour, exceptionally minced honeybee royal jelly, well minced royal bee honey jelly, and superiorly minced honeybee royal jelly. Okay, so some flour and royal jelly. A unique dish. But I mean, who the hell knows? Maybe it kind of fluffs up into a loaf of bread, sort of a deal. Oh, and you know what? Here's another one. Let's have a look. This is a stack of 18 superiorly prepared honeybee royal jelly roast. The ingredients are superiorly minced blood amaranth flour, superiorly minced prepared rhinoceros kidney, superiorly minced prepared coelacanth intestines, and exceptionally minced honeybee royal jelly. Very interesting. It's cool that we have plants, meat, and royal jelly in this one. I can't imagine what the presentation looks like, but it's bound to be interesting, I'm thinking. The taste of a culture. Well, even if it is a pain in the butt, I'm glad we figured out how to cook certain types of food. Well worth the effort, I'd say. And it looks like we just managed to get things done right in time, because the Dwarven Caravan is here once more. And there are a whole bunch of them too. Eager to get their hands on some of our honey, I suppose. Who could blame them? Alright, well we're gonna get some trading done, and probably not get a whole hell of a lot for it, honestly. And in the meantime, we're just finishing up the final finishing touches on our well. And a strange thing it is too. Fairly typical, except it does have an overhang now to avoid contamination, part of the pigman specifications. And then down here at the bottom, we've actually made it a little wider so it can hold more water. And we had installed a bunch of wooden spikes like we have in our stinging hall there, at the bottom of this pit as well. All part of an experiment, I guess. Moses had told us that it's a way to agitate the water, keep it stirred up, and that should make it taste better, be more refreshing, less stagnant. I guess. I'm not sure if that's going to work at all, and frankly I find the whole thing kind of strange, because the water still tastes pretty muddy. But it's really the least we can do. We're taking a long time producing the honey we're supposed to be getting here in the fortress, but at least now we could say we got this strange well completely done to those very precise specifications. Even that miserable messenger seemed pleased when he left with the wagons. We showed him all of our new honey products, the food, the wax crafts, but really he didn't seem to care so much about that stuff. No, he was mainly focusing on this well. I don't know why this thing is so important. Frankly, it's pretty strange. But once more, I guess we can't complain about the whole thing. I mean, at this point we have plenty of rooms for all of our dwarves, a robust beekeeping industry in the works, we are well defended by our spike trap hall, which is almost all the way completed, and is completely adorned with honeycomb engravings. That's gotta be a real spooky place. And yeah. I guess at this point we could just live the rest of our lives happily, as long as those goblins don't give us much trouble, and I suppose as long as that wild boar man keeps happy. I don't see why he wouldn't though, he seems rather pleased with the place. Yeah, you know, honestly, to me it doesn't seem like beekeeping is a worthwhile industry, maybe kind of a support industry, to be used in conjunction with something a bit more effective. But you know, as long as Mr. Disastrous keeps happy, then I guess we could be happy. Yeah, you know what? I'm glad we took his money. Things are working out pretty okay for us. Alright, I'm back, and I have good news today, buddy. I think they're ready. We can move on to the next step. Well, it certainly took long enough. Damn dwarves. Now gather your things, Ak. We have a long trip ahead of us. It's taken 3 long years, but it would seem that the beekeeping dwarves are finally ready. Or their well is, at least. But what does that mean? What do Moses and Ak have up their sleeves? Well, hopefully we'll find out next episode. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week. And until then, you bearded bastards,